Um, well, we've got a couple cubes to get into. Hopefully, the people who are the designers here are either in chat or will be as we get into them. But they both should know that they're being featured tonight. And if you are, Pab and Rolf, if you either of you are here or are here later, please jump in and let us know. We'll be asking some questions, making some observations. Please feel free to shout it out. The whole point is to have a conversation here. So, as Ambrose, thank you so much for that. As he just linked, let me bring it over here. The first one is called the Fundies Cube, which I think is just a really fun name. So the concept here, it's a 360 card, which I know a lot of people here like a good tight 360. And the idea is that it is new player friendly and it's meant to strengthen cube fundamentals, which I think is a really interesting concept because I think we probably could spend the next few hours debating what some of the more in-depth cube fundamentals are, but I think we could also agree on a whole bunch of them pretty easily. So the kind of general idea is that the cards are not super complex individually, meaning you're not going to hit those readers as much, but they're still that doesn't mean that they're bad or narrow cards. Like the example they give here is Lightning Bolt, obviously a strong card, and a versatile one, in the sense that it goes into a number of different kind of red decks. Oh, and that link is broken. Yeah, I
Right,
see
like
why.
it is not a complicated card, but it has a lot of depth to play to it.
Yep.
The designer had mentioned something about depth to complexity ratio, which I honestly had to go look up because it's I guess a game design thing that gets thrown around a little bit. So I
Yep.
just wanted to make sure I understood
Nice.
exactly. I mean, I kind of thought I understood it, but I just wanted to make sure that I wasn't missing anything.
Yeah.
But yeah, that seems to be what their hope is for their card selections in the cube. Yeah.
Which I think is a
They
really interesting space to inhabit. And I also like it's something I've talked about a fair bit with a couple real life or in person friends, as well as some people that I know through the internet that are interested in cube, is like different ideas for things that are new player friendly or that could even be used to teach new players. I actually a lot of my initial play group when I first started building my first cube were people that I worked with that I
Mhm.
I knew played things like D&D or other games, and that I video games, stuff like that I like taught Magic to. So I actually had, for a while, I had like 12 basically of my own versus decks, right? Remember those old versus, like goblins versus elves and all that? I built my own just out of my scraps, and they were good, fun, simple decks, um, and I just would put those out in the middle of the table and let people grab whatever they wanted to play. So the idea of a cube, because I had a popper cube, and that was the other thing that we used to kind of level everyone up a little bit and teach them how to draft and stuff. So the idea of like a cube that can be used to either teach someone Magic or Cube or Limited is a really cool idea. I'm very interested in that.
It is. I think it's a pretty lofty goal, personally.
Oh yeah.
I think it's hard to design an environment like that.
Yep.
Um, and I I took it as the person was trying to make a cube for like new cube friendly people, but maybe it was for new player friendly. I wanted to ask them that if they were in chat because I actually wanted a little clarification on that.
So like asking if it's new to Magic or just new to Cube,
Yeah,
the
yeah.
differentiation
I
there. Okay.
wasn't sure like exactly what they meant.
Okay.
It sounded like new player friendly, but I could have also taken that as a like new player, like new cube player.
Right.
So I
It seems like, because at the bottom he mentioned consistency and power make the environment less hostile for new drafters. So it seems to
Mhm.
me like it's more about teaching people at a minimum limited, or more specifically cube
All right. All
as a
right.
game. That's my guess, and
Yeah.
I think it's okay to approach the review from that perspective.
All right.
Um,
That's okay. So I'll keep that
it's
in mind.
probably a safe way to get in there.
Yeah, for sure.
Hi, Rolfatan. Happy New Year to you as well. Thanks for joining us.
Here. Yep. Yep.
Okay, I think I might have fixed this link. Um, let's see if that's better.
Yeah.
I hate that. I go out of my way to put all these links in, and then the interface for Stream Elements is super weird. Anyway, okay. So, did you have any initial thoughts on this cube? I know you were looking at it a bit today. Um,
Man, just put
anything
me
off
on the
the top?
spot
Oh
right
yeah,
up front now.
yeah, man. This
Um,
is why I have co-hosts. This is why I have guests on, is so you can do all the legwork and I can just try to look good.
yeah, you pick up where I fall apart.
Yeah,
All
yeah.
right. All right.
I think what Derek's trying to say.
What? So initial reactions to this cube? It looks like heavily skewed towards creature-based strategies. Um,
Agreed.
it looks like it is touching on. It looks like it's attempting to touch on synergy a little bit, like that there are cards in here that are not necessarily build arounds, but things that will like try to get you to build towards a synergy oriented deck as opposed to just a like you know creatures and interactive spells.
Like a good stuff pile.
Yeah, like good stuff piles. Like
Right.
there's something going on a little more than just that. But ultimately, it does look like it's just a creature based cube. Um,
Yeah, I agree with
which
that.
is, which plays into the design goal. Obviously, I think that's where you have to start with stuff like that. So
Yeah,
uh,
I think if you're trying to teach someone limited or cube, you definitely want to emphasize, like, especially if this is again more. I think we decided it was aimed more at cube, but if you're trying to teach someone the concepts of limited, like, you got to play to the board. Like, that's number one, right? Or
yes,
it's in the top five. Um,
yeah, I think playing to the board. I think that is kind of what defines the uh, new player experience
right,
for sure.
right.
For most people, I would say, unless they're weird and their first time playing Magic was like with a combo deck or
Yeah,
something.
yeah,
I'm
yeah,
sure it's happened. I'm sure people definitely start
yeah,
there.
yeah. No,
But
I think a lot of us, though, you're right. Like, the first thing we do is, like, throw a bunch of creatures in a deck and maybe a couple of removal spells if someone's coached us on it. And then we're like, yeah, let's go.
yeah. So what did you feel similarly to first impressions?
Oh, for sure. Yeah, I agree with that. And even just looking through, especially the spells list, like a really strong emphasis on removal, or things like Blood for Bones, good, simple, kind of medium power level reanimate,
Mm-hmm.
um, stuff like that, and a lot of um, some token generation, some generic removal in white, but focus on things like pacifism, auras, um, and even the planeswalkers generally, like, there's some synergy there, but other than maybe Koth, well, even Koth, right? Like, just about beating face.
Yeah.
Like the even the walkers kind of play to the board, which I actually appreciate. Um, in
Yeah, for
that,
the most part. I mean, some of the walkers are incredibly powerful, and I'll get
sure,
to that in a little bit.
yep,
But because I do think there are some pretty severe, and I don't mean severe in like a bad way, but there are some very high power outliers. So
sure,
I do see this cube as having a pretty wide power band,
right,
and I'd be curious to see like how and what the designers thoughts were on that.
right,
But being unable to ask them like if that was their intention, just going off of what they said before, how they presented the cube, good for new players. Some of these cards, the planeswalkers and some of the build around the like more things that they intentionally seeded to be build around are kind of a little above the threshold that I would consider good for new players.
Sure.
Uh, Cards like you know, where is it? Cards like Garrick Wild Speaker or Liliana the Last Hope, just like really, really powerful.
Yeah, Last Hope was one as I was scrolling through talking about the walkers. I was like, oh, that's a real card.
Yeah. So
That thing was like $90 when it was coming out of recent packs.
for sure, yeah, very very powerful planeswalker.
Yep.
Um,
Yep.
but like the thing that was the that I paid attention to was if you look in the white section, in the instance,
Sure.
you have um, at 1 mana, Path to Exile, Sheltering Light, and Swords to Plowshares. So you have two of the most powerful removal spells ever printed,
Yep.
and probably the two most powerful white removal spells,
Yep.
point removal spells ever printed, next to a mediocre, like a blossoming defense.
Yeah.
So that and like that's like one snapshot that I can zoom in on and say like, hey, like you're playing swords next to a like combat trick.
Yeah, it's
And
almost like a poor
pretty
man's
high.
God's willing, right?
Yeah. And and like that's like less good than God's willing
Yeah, yeah, that's what I mean. Yep.
in a lot of like most of the time. So
Yep.
like there's a pretty wide reach of power here.
Okay.
And I think like you're I think if that's what they want, that's cool. Like if they want like big spikes in power in the decks and in the gameplay. But if I'm trying to approach this from new player friendly stuff, I would lean more towards like trying to close that power gap between
Yep.
the low end and the high end and try to find something that mixes in the middle.
Interesting. So here's a that I like that thought. Here's a counter perspective, and we don't know. Hopefully, Pab will join us in the near future, and we can get a little bit more clarity on his exact kind of aim. Because one way to look at it also would be that, and this is something that I would personally think about, is like there are certain cards that if I was building a cube to introduce people to cube, I would not want to leave out, and like Path at least, if not Swords as well, is probably one of them,
Okay.
or two of them. Just like Bolt, like I would want, if you take the power out of it, and you go on Cube Cobra and pull up top cards, because Cobra will tell you what cards are at what density throughout all cubes on the site, and that's by no means ubiquitous. Not everyone has their list on here, right? But it's a good way to get some data. And you're going to see a lot of things like Mox and some other kind of obvious cards.
Yeah.
But,
They're good cards.
Bolt is
Yeah.
going to be up there. Doomblade's going to be up there.
Yeah.
And they are if you were to give someone a box of cards, 100 cards that was a cube starter set, and you said, okay, here's a shell, fill in the rest, what would be in there? And like I said, Bolt, Doom, and these are all the removal spells, but there's others, right? Goblin Guide, probably Monastery Swiftspear. Jackal Pup is sort of an older one that's phasing out, but it's one that a lot of experienced cube people, kind of meme about, right? We joke about Jackal Pup and its place in cube as a necessary, a necessary 1 mana 2 power creature. So I think that's one way to look at it, and I wonder if maybe that's some of the motivation is like he wants to make sure that some of these cards that if you did go to a GP and just play a bunch of different people's cubes, you should be familiar with how powerful and how important these cards are because they're going to show up a lot, and you should know that they're high picks.
Absolutely.
And then
And you can, yeah, every cube is going to have the high picks.
Yep.
Every cube is going to have a best cards.
Yep, of course.
But so to push, like to go back, right? To offer a counterpoint back to that.
Yep.
To that. Um, when you put in these cards that let's just say that because Swords to Plowshare is probably one of the better cards in this cube, from my
It's
perspective.
way up there for sure.
Um,
Yeah.
and if like when you are in for Swords to Plowshares, um, it puts a lot of pressure on creatures that cost a lot of mana,
Mm-hmm.
and so it's going to dictate a lot of how you design the creature suite, and you end up in a place where you do have to play creatures that you're more likely to get value coming in or coming in than you do when you untap. Like when you play Bolt and Plow, you
Yeah.
need more Mole Drifters than you do
Yeah.
Baneslayers.
Yeah.
And
Well, and you need those like those Jundi threats that are hard to deal with, right? At least it's the stuff that I always associate with Jund decks, which is stuff that you just can't quite get rid of.
like
Um,
a
like
like troll creatures.
like a Thrag Tusk.
Yeah.
That's I mean, you said it. You get value entering, right? You get 5 life, and then if it gets bolted or plowed immediately, you get a 3/3. Those kind of cards are excellent in a high powered removal environment.
Yeah.
Where your Zulaport Cutthroat strategies are going to struggle a little bit more.
Yes.
Because yeah, you want stuff to die, but you're not going to be able to stick your Cutthroat to get there.
As often. Yeah.
Yes, as often, of
Yeah.
course. Yep.
So if that's the way the intention of the designer, if they want to play the higher power interaction, it's gonna to me that's gonna dictate what kind of creatures they're gonna play, and how often they can untap with what,
Sure.
and what kind of board states are going to develop.
Yep.
Um,
Yep.
and it's going to dictate the pick order of how people will evaluate what creatures they think are powerful in the environment.
Yep.
Um, so you get less Kessig Cage Breakers and more Thragtusk.
Yeah.
For instance, like if you're going to spend 5 mana on a
That was like literally when I sent you the list. That was like literally the first thing you said was both of these really like Kessig Cage Breakers.
Kessig Cage Breakers. And you know what? There's nothing wrong with these cards, man.
No,
Like there's
no,
nothing wrong.
no.
Like Cage Breakers is a Baneslayer, gets a lot of value when you untap. If the longer the game goes, the crazier the trigger is gonna hit off.
Yep.
So it's a card that's like can be exciting, especially for somebody that's a newer player. So
Yeah.
I
That
think
snowbally feeling where like you're building your board, getting better and better. Yep.
yeah, and so if the designer wants newer players to experience untap like building, letting a game go longer, building a board out, getting more use out of their creatures, especially at higher casting costs.
Right.
They can. I would like to see removal adjusted a little bit, to get the really premium stuff out, and replace it with just slightly worse but still very effective. Like
Sure.
there are more pacifisms that you can play. There are
Yep.
more
Yep.
permanent based white removal spells that you can play.
Yep.
That are
Yep.
just a little bit worse.
Yeah,
But
there's tons of O-ring variants and
yeah.
at various CMCs. I mean, even something like Cast Out is a great. Although, do I remember that they said no cycling?
No, that cycling's cool.
Oh
Cycling.
no, cycling was accepted. It's the exception.
Yeah.
I skimmed that and I wasn't sure. So I mean, yeah, like Cast Out is a great lesson in that the value of adding a mana but being able to cycle it off early.
For sure.
And I mean, for heaven's sake, their key picture is hieroglyphic illumination, right? They do. Oh, they do have Cast Out. Okay, so that's already in there. But perfect example. I mean, good heavens, looking at it, Cast Out, Face Fetters, O-Ring, Banishing Light, Pacifism, and Journey. Like that's deep enough. Just cut all your, or leave one instant speed removal. Like throw a Sunlance in there or something, or leave the Sunlance in there at sorcery speed and call it a day.
And you could play the other pacifism. You could play Spectral Grasp. You could play Prison Realm. You could play Glass Casket. You could play Baffling End. You could play all those other like slightly slower, but still
Yep.
solid and efficient. Like they can answer a lot of things, but they're not like super efficient, like super on rate,
Right.
powerful
Right.
stuff.
Well,
Um,
and rate is ultimately algebra, right? Like Bolt is the benchmark for burn rate only because they won't print anything better. If they started printing 1 mana 4 damage bolts, that's the new rate, right? Like so it's a product of the environment is I think what I'm trying to say.
mm,
So it's what we're talking about here is matching the removal rate and the creature rate being a function of cost and value, and equalizing those out or balancing those out better so that right now I 1000% agree that the removal rate is significantly better, more efficient than the creature rate, and that is going to create, like you said, a lot of empty boards. I think more than maybe is anticipated.
yeah, it warns that it's possible,
Yep. Yep.
right? Like it's not like they're playing all of the hyper efficient removal in every color.
Yeah.
They kind of it seems like the designer kind of it's like a little bit here, a little bit there, here at this casting cost, here at this casting cost. Um, so while you do have bolt and burst lightning, you also have you have like sorcery speed stuff. You have magma jet. You have char, which is like kind of slow. You
Yeah.
have you know flames of the firebrand, arc of lightning.
Right.
Um, so they have like it's a mix. Like they're it's not all there, but like the
Right.
being but the yeah, I think what we're both saying is true. Is we're getting towards the center of like the point, which is like you considering like take consideration to what the power level of the removal is versus the creatures.
Yep.
See what kind of experience you want on the board,
Yep.
and how often you want people untapping, building boards, uh, and you have to rate the removal accordingly so
Yep.
that people can't just get double spelled super early in the game and have it be big tempo swings.
Yeah.
Unless that's of course what they want.
Yeah.
I don't think it's what they want based on the write up, and that's why I'm pressing the
I
point
agree.
so hard.
I agree.
But yeah,
No, I
uh,
agree.
that I guess that's like my big picture thing
Well, and his
for
first
them.
question was also, are there any cards that stand out as exceptionally weak or strong compared to the rest? And I think more valuable than pointing out a handful of cards like, hey, Swords is really powerful, or Sarah Angel's kind of on the low side. Like, that's helpful, but I think it's more helpful what you've said, which is, finding that delta between removal and creature value, um, and trying to close that gap a little bit, or at least, like you said, think about. Like I said, you were saying earlier, I like how you're open ended about it. Look, if that's the style you want, that's okay, but that's what you're going to get is this spikier kind of tempo swing. If you close that gap, you're going to get a little bit more common board building and longer games, more mid-range games.
Yeah.
Yeah, and D White's 100% correct. Like almost literally every cube that's come up on this review so far has had Sarah Angel in it somehow. Apparently, like, and I feel kind of bad because literally the day after the first one, one of the designers who goes by Intentional Misplay on Cube Cobra is their handle. She was like, "Okay, I took Sarah Angel out. I'm sorry," and I was like, "No, like we're just memeing on you because like, you know, it's such a cornerstone card for older players." But yeah, apparently that. Yep, there it is. Look at it. Look at it. You had it ready.
I keep it right. I keep it right by my desk just in
Yep,
case.
just in case. That's why you're allowed on. It's part of the. It's part of the. Apparently, it's like I should just make that my avatar for this channel because it keeps coming up. Um, no, that's
Okay.
that's fantastic. So let me run through a couple of the other questions, and like I said, we could tackle them in kind of any order or any
Sure.
any way we want. Are there cards you think fit nicely that aren't in the cube? I think we've kind of talked again a little bit about the tuning of the broader perspective. But if there's a card you have in mind, obviously we can bring it up. Is there an effect that is overrepresented or underrepresented? Are there archetypes we'd like to see supported, or that are not adequately supported enough? And then the last question they had was, how friendly and forgiving is this draft environment to new players? And again, I think what we've touched on kind of speaks to all those points, but I think those are all great questions. And then real quick, before we jump into those, I did want to say, because in chat, a couple people brought up the single mana cycling lands.
Okay.
And we'll have to ask Pab whenever he's around, but there's actually a fair bit of cycling in the cube overall. We've got 4 of the bike dual lands, and then we've got 1 each of the single mana lands. And I honestly would just say, I mean, no, there's not like a cycling or lands in graveyard payoff, but I also just think teaching a new cuber the value of a cycling land and the value of an MDFC would be very high on my list of fundamentals, even though MDFCs might be considered a little bit more of an advanced understanding from like a design perspective. I think just being able to teach a player the modality of this card, the options on this card, is a huge benefit. And the fact that you can just toss a land late in the game, in some decks at least, is important. Now, maybe there's an argument that like the red one and the white one in the traditional aggro colors is way more important than, the green one, where green is frequently looking to hit all its land drops, or, trying to have a higher density of lands or whatever. Maybe there's even a lands theme, but I think just the value of, hey, this turns into a cantrip when you need it to is value enough, personally.
Yeah.
Especially in a board-based cube.
I think there's like a something that I think if that's the thing you want to, the impression you want to give for a new player, I think that can be done with cards that have cycling that are also spells.
Sure.
And as opposed to these lands, and you could maybe save these for other spells or just other cards that have cycling.
Sure.
Like Boon of the Wishgiver,
right.
Hieroglyphic Illumination. These are good. Those are excellent.
Yep. Cast out
cards that show that lesson.
Okay, that's fair.
For me.
Sure.
I would almost rather just see another duel or another.
I mean, always.
Spell. Yeah.
Or maybe a utility land.
Or a utility land, which would be something that I would love to see in a cube like this.
Yeah,
absolutely.
Like let's get a treetop village in there, right? That would be my first one for green. Would be swap it out for a treetop.
Yeah, you could do easily. You could do stuff like that.
Yep. There is one. I mean, this is the only one I've seen so far that literally, and it's not a payoff, but literally has any other value that comes from cycling something else, is Curator of Mysteries. You also have a couple like Cross and Tusker where you have a when you cycle, which I also think is a valuable approach.
Sure.
There's a few of those that are pretty neat, like almost feels like it has Evoke.
Yeah, Curator of Mysteries is a good one just because it's a cycling 4/4 flyer.
Yep. But I mean, you don't put in all the cycling lands just to play with Curator.
Nah, like that's just like a little extra seasoning on your pizza.
Yep.
Like you're happy to play those cards. Like you're happy to play Curator in almost any, pretty much any blue deck.
Yep.
I think
It's just a value. It's just a value deck.
It's just a good bit of value tacked onto a very good on-rate body.
Right.
So that's like a good power level I see for the environment, is something like that.
Okay.
Especially to express that modal spell cycling aspect of a card.
Yep. Yep. Which I do think I do maintain is a valuable lesson.
Yeah. yeah, approaching it from the new player friendly, like let's show you some of the things that are
Right.
possible.
Right.
That's a good, clean, simple approach to that, to expressing that aspect of the game.
Yep.
Um, to the questions of the cube designer, they asked for cards that they thought were exceptionally weak or strong. Um, I think that the couple cards that really threw me, the biggest one was Burning Vengeance. Um, I am very confused as to why this card is in this cube.
Okay.
Because it's incredibly narrow in its application.
Yep.
Like it's a 3 mana do nothing enchantment that needs you to literally cast spells from your graveyard,
Right.
and you just get a little bit of value from that. And doing a quick search for like flashback, for instance.
So flashback has 15 cards.
Yeah, and they're spread across different colors.
Yes, and they're not like Faithless Looting's a good example, but there's also like Firebolt, which is
like Firebolt's just a good card.
Yeah.
Like
yeah.
anybody's gonna play Firebolt in their red deck.
Right. Right.
So like wild cards like Silent Departure are medium but like playable, and like a cool card that you could play in a cube that was for new players to teach them about flashback, to have if they want bounce in the cube.
Sure.
It's good. But it doesn't seem to have a place here, and if somebody saw it and thought that they could build a deck around it, I think they would just be like digging themselves into a hole.
100%.
Yeah. So something that is confusing to me. I don't think it belongs here necessarily. And then cards like Sulfuric Vortex. I know I'm picking on red a little bit. Sorry, red, but
it's used to it.
Vortex is like a card that again doesn't do anything and is like super oppressive when it works, and just super boring, or like such a bummer when you're like behind or whatever, like it doesn't work. And it's hyper parasitic to like only like very specific archetype.
Right.
Whereas I don't know if it's something that like a pet card of the cube designer or whatever, but I just don't think it has a home here. I think they could just play something really more like fundamental to a red deck.
Right.
As to like this payoff for already being in a red deck that just like kind of doesn't.
This again smacks to me of like copy paste vintage cube, or it's up in the list of cubes that it's in, or it's maybe that's not the right way to express it, but it's like ubiquitous to old cube design, right? So I wonder if maybe it was just sort of, again, one of those like, oh, that's in a bunch of cubes, I'll throw that in there.
Yeah. I think a metric ton of life gain is not just, I'm speaking to Ambrose.
Yeah. Yep.
I think a metric ton of life gain is like kind of like you can push white into that space pretty easily because it's so supported in the color. And like I don't think it's something that necessarily like needs to be combated with such a parasitic card like Sulfuric Vortex. Like to me, it's an unnecessary card that only goes into a specific deck that only hoses one other specific strategy.
Right.
Like if white's gonna gain life, that's how they want to construct white strategy. And
well, and I think Ambrose pointed out earlier, I think that was who said it, that there wasn't really like a strong payoff for life gain. Like there's no top end to that. It's more just an incidental way to keep your life total up while you execute some other plan, or it's just again, it's the seasoning on your pizza. Like you don't play Fumigate as a life gain card, you play it as a sweeper And then the fact that you gain some life off of it is like a nice treat with
Yeah.
it. It's a treat for paying that extra mana. And Fumigate is also a good choice in this cube based on what we were talking about earlier about toning down the removal.
Sure, because it's a slower wrath.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep. But as an example here, this is not a... And looking at the cards, just I filtered by cards that have both the word gain and life in their Oracle text. Looking at them, like, this is not... None of this is like a cohesive life gain thing. I think there's just a lot of cards that incidentally happen to gain you life.
Mm-hmm.
Like none of this smacks of like I'm playing this in a life game deck.
Yes. Agreed.
Yeah.
So,
or what the hell's that dinosaur that hates on life gain?
Rampaging
Literally,
Ferocity.
thank you.
The card that was banned in Standard for whatever reason.
Thank you.
So, like,
I literally was looking at this yesterday and could not put my brain on it.
So like my general right, but like to Funch's point too, like
Yep.
Rampaging Ferocidon is a 3-mana 3/3. It
Yep.
can be interacted with.
Yeah, well, and it's also like you might just draft this to be a 3-mana 3/3 menace in your like aggressive or mid-range red deck, and like that's just, and you don't care about the life gain, or like that your opponent's playing, a bunch of raise the alarm effects where they're going to get lots of creatures, and you're like, okay, well, I'm just this is going to ping you out,
Right.
or help ping you out.
Yep.
But yeah, I doubt we need life gain hate specifically in here. So presumably Sulfuric Vortex was meant to be support for sort of a burn RDW.
Burn,
and I agree with you that there are just better options to go into that burn deck that are more fun, more interactive, and less sort of archaic.
I just think the key is just interactive, like playing to the board, putting creatures on the board, attacking and blocking with them.
Yep.
Like more fundamentals, like less of these like narrow niche application, niche archetype things.
Right.
Much broader, flexible things that give meaningful decisions, but don't lead drafters down a path where they're casting cards that don't do anything some amount of time.
Yep.
Which is certainly something that happens with the Vortex more often than people might realize. Because people are used to playing Vortex in, MTGO, Vintage Cube, Mono Red deck wins, stuff like that. So,
Right.
So that's like that's a big point for me too. Like take away like the stuff that, is a little fancy or that doesn't play to fundamental Magic and replace it with things that play more to fundamental Magic. It doesn't have to be oversimplified, but like just give me more good quality creatures, good rate creatures, and good removal spells. Because that's fun and like that's gonna work towards the design goal that that Pab wants, I think.
Yep.
Oh boy, what are we talking about? Monarch now?
Well, someone suggested Court of Ire as a similar thing, but that has Monarch, which I think we can just say Monarch would be very bad for this cube and be pretty confident that's true.
Monarch is terrifying. Like it's like it's just kind of like a sub game. We don't need that in like a new player friendly format. It's like, wait, now we're playing a different game than Magic.
Yeah, no. I think a better way to look at it would be there are a number of creatures that deal damage on attack in some way or another, and I think that would be a much better way to say here's what red wants to do. Hellrider is probably too powerful, but it's one that most people are going to be familiar with as an example of something that deals some damage when it attacks. There was a recent one that's bothering me, and apparently I'm just too tired today to actually remember
that's all right. It's New Year's
card
Eve,
names.
Man.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm having a cocktail while we talk.
Hell yeah.
So.
I'm having decaf tea, so that tells you where I'm at.
It does.
Yep. No, but there's a recent Scampering Scorcher's not it. That's a good one. But there's a gosh, I think it might have been an M20 or M21 that deals a damage when it attacks. Um,
You
and
talking
I
about
was
the
just
one
thinking,
mana one?
yeah,
Yeah, like score. I don't remember the name of it.
right.
But yeah, it's one mana, 1/1 that deals the damage to a player or planeswalker when it attacks.
Yep, yep.
Yeah,
Scorch
I forgot what
Spitter.
it's called. Scorch Spitter.
Thank you, Phil
Yay!
Games. Everyone got there.
Yep. Yeah. Yeah.
All
Yeah.
right.
Yeah.
So there's, I think, a much better example of a card that would do a similar thing, which is that damage per turn kind of feeling, but does a little bit more of what Red wants to do,
Okay.
and at a slightly lower power. And again, this is just one example. There's no shortage of, as D White pointed out, Tech Giant's another good example. There's plenty of everything from Scorch Spitter up to Glorybringer. Take your pick
Take your pick.
of your power level and your CMC that you want to fill it in. But I think that would be better.
Yeah.
Yep.
To go back a little bit in the chat,
Any three CMC
Sir
Phoenix.
Lancelot had mentioned they said that Preordain was a card that they were questioning.
Sure.
And I thought that was an interesting comment because the reason that they said it might not have a home here was because it would create decision paralysis for new players.
Yep.
Which is something that I wouldn't have thought of initially. I would just say like, oh, Preordain's really powerful, maybe reconsider. But like, you know, a spell that like has so much requires so much thought and decision making.
Yeah.
On such a cheap, like it's a very powerful spell, as
Yeah.
you and I both know.
Oh yeah.
And takes time as you play a lot of more and more Magic to understand how to cast your Preordain.
Yeah.
And so perhaps thinking about changing the like maybe that's too much for a new player. Maybe you can play, you know, Chart a Course instead. Like they have Chart a Course here instead.
I was gonna say Opt, which is also in here. So clearly
Yeah.
they're already there.
Yeah.
I'll just go out and say maybe that's maybe that's just one more like 3-mana creature, or like maybe that's maybe that should just be a. Ironically, I mentioned it earlier. I don't see a Muldrifter in here. Am I missing it? No.
Ooh, no Muldrifter.
Right.
Shame.
So like, you know, maybe Preordain should just be Muldrifter.
Yeah.
Speaking of cards that are in every cube, here's my cube that doesn't run creatures or blue, but it has Muldrifter because you can't make a cube without apparently Muldrifter and Sarah Angel.
Yeah, apparently not.
Yeah.
Right. They want so
Yeah.
to speak to what Ambrosia Seattle just said,
Yep.
that they want cards that are not individually complex but still have considerable depth. Well, yes, they
It's tough.
they had written something about a depth to complexity ratio, which I guess what they were intending was that the card selections should ideally have a high depth, but not necessarily a high complexity.
Right.
So like they're a card like Lightning Bolt, it was their marquee, their exemplary card where they're
Right.
like it is highly high depth but low complexity. And I think I think they have not pushed that far enough,
Sure.
because some of the card choices are either too fussy or too like they do too much and not enough. Like card like Grim Tutor, for instance, like it's a slow tutor that makes you pay life. It seems like it's a really cool effect, but it does something at a really inefficient rate. You could just play something a little simpler that is lower on the complexity level, so they don't have to think about what card they want from their deck or how to put something together.
Yeah.
But play something that has a lot of depth in gameplay and interaction,
Yep.
as opposed to like a more cerebral approach to it.
Right.
Like play it to the board.
So that I keep kind of being the devil's advocate on here, which is a terrible term, but there you have it.
Okay.
Do we want to introduce all new cube players to tutor effects of some variety, since very high power level cubes tend to play at least some level of tutors?
Yeah, when there's combo, there's tutors
Right.
for sure.
Yeah. So I don't. I mean, I don't know. I don't. I don't have a huge draw to tutors because I think, again, newer players tend to misunderstand the value of them. They're only as good as your best card, and only if you need that card desperately at a given moment. Um, or maybe strongly is better word than desperately. But I mean, I will say I think Grim Tutor's a better choice than some of the other tutors out there. I just, again, I wonder if that's in here as a, hey, here's a thing that's gonna happen.
Right. It
Um,
almost just seems kind of well, the card itself just seems like, hey, I want you to have a tutor,
yeah,
you know,
yeah.
without really but like I don't know what I'm
Like,
tutoring
do we
for.
do
Like,
we need a tutor in here? And the answer is probably not.
yeah, like you could do without. You could do something that's a lot lower in the complexity scale that still has that depth. Like
Right.
if you're telling me Lightning Bolt is what you want, then I want to see more cards that are as clean and easy to understand, but high agency as Lightning Bolt. Like I would like to see them push farther in that direction, and
Okay.
I don't think there's anything to be afraid of. Like you're not if you take out Preordain and Grim Tutor, yeah, like these cards are like potentially very powerful, and but like you're not gonna um right. I yes, but Demonic Tutor is a broken magic card. Yes.
Right.
Um, I don't think you're like losing out on depth or complexity.
Sure.
I think you might just be muddying the water a little bit.
Okay.
That's just how that's my critique of the cards like that. I think they
Sure.
could if it was up to me, if it was me suggesting to them, let's play more lightning bolts
Yep.
and more designs like that, and let's shave some of the cards that are just like a little fussy, a little could create, as Funch said so well, decision paralysis.
Right.
Just get some cards in here that are good, clean, fundamental cards. That interact well together, but also
Yep.
just play the board.
Yeah. When in doubt, play to the board. Right. That's what we keep coming back to. Preordained doesn't play to the board. It plays to strategizing. Grim Tutor plays to strategizing. Those are create decisions where you have to think ahead of what you're doing. You have to tutor the card that you know you need, or that you think you're going to need soon, or that you need for your combo. And if you're comboing, that's the whole thing. Um,
Yeah,
and Preordain is about sequencing, and like you said, the better you get at Magic, or the more experience you get at Magic, the more you start to learn when and where to play that and how to use it effectively, and all of that doesn't lend to just simply playing towards the board and playing towards winning the game with your plan, which in a cube like this is going to be frequently creature based, or a little more straightforward than like, you're not playing like KCI in here, right?
right. I mean, obviously, yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
As an
That's
extreme example,
that's a good example to a good card to like prove a point, a very
right,
extreme point.
right,
But
right.
I totally agree, and I get where you're coming from with
Yep,
that. Yeah,
yep.
absolutely.
So there's some in here again using like the tutors, preordain, as examples that could be more straightforward. Like I think you brought up earlier, I think hieroglyphic illumination is an excellent example of something that's pretty easy to grasp. Like drawing two cards is great, cycling a card early is great, and something maybe you can learn through this card. Um, whereas like the application depth of something like preordain might be more than what is looked for in this environment.
Yeah. I've noticed that I've
Interesting.
been talking a lot about the spells.
Well, I mean, like,
I've really, like talked about the creatures at all.
I think the creatures are pretty good though. Like, I'm pretty
Yeah.
happy with what I see. We have a lot of good value on the board, and I think if the spells are if the spells or creatures are aligned a little bit more, so that we're not worried about the delta between the removal power and the ability of a creature to land. Again, stuff like our gutter snipe, and our Ophiomancers and our Vampire Nighthawks are going to suffer in that higher removal environment. But like overall, I feel like the creatures tend to support the strategies that you'd expect them to. And we have a lot of good, like, again, play to the board creatures that do something and that move you forward and aren't just shitting around, dirtling around. Yep. There might be some power outliers, like Massacre Worm is pretty woof.
Yeah.
But I mean, it's six mana and 3 black, so like
mana.
It's probably fine.
6 mana cards should be able to win the game, man.
Right.
Like,
yeah. Yep.
Yeah. I'm totally okay with stuff like that.
Yeah. No, I think that's fine.
Yeah.
There's a really nice selection of green ramp cheat targets.
Yeah.
Ambrose said that the 1-drops feel a little light, which I could see. Maybe
for green specifically?
No, I think he just mentioned it in general. I think
it depends upon. Yeah, I mean, if they're going for full support on white and red aggro and full support on green ramp, then yes, they are light. But I don't know if that's the
that might just be fine for this cube. It might be in a fine place.
But like the green ramp creatures, like there's just 4, and they're they could play a lot more, especially if they wanted to ramp up to 5, 6, 7 mana creatures, which it looks like they want to.
Yeah, I think that's what we're doing, right? I actually forgot to look, but I don't think we're not sneak attacking or anything crazy like that, right?
No. I would be shocked if there's something like sneak attack in here.
No, I think your only way to do that is there is some level of reanimate. Again, there's like blood for bones and victimize. A couple options like that. But yeah, there's a decent chance that you're just trying to ramp up to your Hornet Queen, which is a big ask if you don't have enough dorks.
It's a really big ask. Yeah.
And we do have rampant growth.
Yeah, they have rampant growth. And they have wild growth, fertile ground.
Right.
That stuff is, that helps. I mean, They could, if they wanted ramp, they could push that even harder. They could play wild growth and what is it called? Utopia Sprawl and the other fertile ground, and they like Wolf Willow Haven. Like they could do stuff like that. They really wanted to get it bigger, go bigger with green.
Right.
Because putting 6 and 7 drops and 8 drops in green is tough.
Yep.
Especially when there's so few.
Yep.
And people are gonna fight over these cards. I mean, Birds of Paradise is a messed up Magic card.
Yep. It sure is good in every green deck. Yep. Yeah, I mean, if there's even a hint of playing green, I would take literally 3 out of these 4 1-drops, and Arbor Elf isn't far behind either. There's still a decent chance that Arbor Elf's good in a green X deck.
For sure. I guess the only thing I would say about the creature base, just as a big picture.
Yep.
Because obviously we could spend however long nitpicking over individual card choices. I don't really.
Yeah. No, I think big picture is more helpful, right?
Card I see a card like Armorcraft Judge, right? And I'm like, okay, so if you're gonna put this in a cube,
right?
You're telling me that I could play this never as a hill giant and always as a hill giant that draws me multiple cards,
right?
And if I see an Armorcraft judge, I'm gonna think that that kind of strategy is supported, and then so then I look at the creatures in green. I barely see any creatures that have +1/+1 counters on them,
Yep.
and so again, like this card like leads me down a direction that it doesn't, that it's not supported to the level of like something that I know I could consistently draft. Because like a 4 mana 3/3, it's not really all that good. Like Hill Giants, like it's fine, but like
Yep.
you know, I kind of want a little more, either just more power and toughness on raid, or like to know that my synergy is gonna work. Um, so like if they want to play cards like Armorcraft Judge, I would want to know. I would want to see more support.
I would
I,
actually, yeah, and that's a good example. I'd actually just avoid too much +1/+1 counter stuff.
yeah,
Like if it's just something that just comes in, like Voracious Hydro is one of my favorite green cards. If it's just something that comes in big or at a variety of sizes based on counters, great. But I would avoid like payoff stuff
yeah.
in that
I
area. It's hard to
they
make it work regardless, and then we're back up to like complexity of card, or at least
right.
complexity of strategy, maybe.
Yeah, like it's it. You want to be able to like make the message clear
Yep. Yep.
to the drafter, right?
Yep.
Like you want the deck, the the deck that wants an Armorcraft Judge isn't really here. Like, yeah, occasionally you're gonna like play your Nissa Voices in a card, put a counter on everything, and you're gonna play Armorcraft Judge, and you're gonna draw 4 cards, and
Yep.
it's like, yeah, that's
Yep.
great. Like that's really powerful. But like that's mostly because Nissa is powerful, not because Armorcraft Judge was like something that you were looking to be like for as a payoff.
Yeah. Yeah.
Uh,
No, I'm with you on
so
that.
I would want to see like, yeah, like Armorcraft Judge is cool. Like it's a good message to a drafter, especially new ones. Like, okay, cool. Like I'm gonna see a bunch of cards that are +1/+1
Yeah.
counter. Like
Take
plus
them
one,
all.
and like it's not like a strategy necessarily, but it's like, oh, I can make use of this, and like it be a powerful card in my deck.
Sure.
If that's something that the designer wants. I think they can really push that and not uh and there's a lot of stuff that you can play even in green that you can use to
Sure.
support that.
Yep.
So I would have them looking towards that a little bit more, towards like looking at the cards that ask that kind of stuff of you,
Right.
and push towards that more.
Sure. Yep.
I'm just looking, trying to find another example. Hissing iguana, or maybe something like that, like a
Yeah.
sacrifice. Yeah.
Yep. Yep. Yeah, I think that's I think Armorcraft Judge is a very good example of just something that it might be a little bit of a trap unintentionally.
Well, as it stands now,
Yeah.
perhaps.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, 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 currently. Yeah, of course
Yeah.
you can adjust for it, but that's something definitely to address.
Yeah.
Is watch out for stuff that's unintentionally signposty but isn't, so traps.
Yeah.
Because like I think something like Judith is a great example of something that's a very good indication of exactly what you should be doing in black red,
Mm-hmm.
both in this cube and just sort of fundamentally. But but
Would you?
but yes, like Armorcraft Judge actually I think might be the best example in here of something that like when you see it you're like, oh, I know exactly what deck I'm supposed to build, and then it's like you're gonna go down a bad path there.
Mm-hmm. Even just like the blood artist stuff. Like
Yep.
you can really push that if you want to, and create a draftable deck so that somebody knows exactly where they're going
Right.
when they see that stuff going on.
Yep. And as
Uh,
as pointed out in the chat, there are actually a couple other like Conclave Mentors in here, which is another um, +1/+1 counter card, build around or card
Sure.
that look like it looks like maybe that was something that got lost in the build, or maybe was an original idea that didn't pan out, or maybe I don't know. I'd have to look at the blog. Maybe there was better support for it before, but those definitely are going to lead you down a bad path. Those two cards.
Right. So my message would be, and I'm sure you agree to some extent, is just you can narrow all this down,
Yep.
not sacrifice gameplay. Like
Yep.
you can give people depth to these strategies without leading them down the wrong path, and still have it be really fun to draft and play.
Yep. Yep.
So I think they just have to make a decision of like which direction do they want, like where do they want to guide their drafters down, and
Yep.
have it be clear, have it be well supported.
Yep. Yep.
Just okay, this is a great example because even in green white, right? Like you have Conclave Mentor and Good Fortune Unicorn, and Knight of Autumn, which is like a flexible, kind of powerful green white card. And then you have Trostani, which is a token generator,
Yep.
not a +1/+1 counter card. So that's telling me to do something different in the same color combination.
Yeah.
So even then, like I'm seeing like a little bit of tension in like the drafter's desire for what the color combination wants to do.
Yeah. I forgot they listed it. Dan just pointed out that +1/+1 counters is meant to be supported in green white. That's on their overview. It's a list.
Cool.
So they have a list of, so green, white, and a little bit red and a little bit black are meant to be tokens go wide, creatures matter, and then
All right.
green white is supposed to have an opportunity for +1/+1 counters. So yeah, we definitely need more than support for the counters. Like as Dan just pointed out, Ridge Scale Tusker is a great example of a card that's in here that's good for that archetype.
Yep.
But yeah, we definitely need more if that's supposed to be a thing.
Yeah. And Ridge Scale Tusker is like, yeah, it puts counters on your dudes, but it's also just a 5-mana 5/5 that makes your team huge. Like
Yep.
it's
Oh yeah. Yep.
it's just a good card in a
Yep.
cube that wants to be this power level.
100%.
So it's not like you're going to see Ridge Scale Tusker and be like, oh, maybe I should be counters. Like I think most drafters would see that card and be like, holy crap, that puts so much power and toughness on the board.
Yep.
I got to take this and play it because it's a powerful 5-drop.
Yep.
And so like that's not guiding me down a path so much as just like being a good card. Yeah, like that's a good example. Cards like a card like Unbreakable Formation is a good example. Basri Solidarity, a little worse, but still tells me that I want to be doing that.
Yep.
Like, yeah, there's tons of creatures that you can play around this space with.
Yeah, so I agree. I think we just need a little more density to get there, because right now it feels like there's a decent chance that you don't end up, like, any green player will take, as you said, Ridge Scale Tusker, so that you can't rely on that being your combo with Armorcraft Judge.
Yeah. And also Armorcraft Judge comes down before Ridge Scale Tusker anyway.
Well, yes. Yeah. I also, honestly, I also, like, I actually tried supporting +1/+1 counters in my cube at one point, and I'm still not a big fan of Judge because, yeah, it might draw you some cards, but I'd rather just have another Ridge Scale Tusker variant. Like, I'd rather just have more counters. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, I don't want to draw cards. I just want to kill you with my giant creatures. Like, like give me an overrun. Not a good example because that's temporary, but like that's a good way to finish that off. Or anything that also overruns in the cube. Like just give me more counters. That's what I want.
Yeah. Well, like some examples, just to throw some examples out there of like places you could go with this. Servant of the Scale and Storm Shambler are possible cards you could play. Experiment 1 is a really good +1/+1 counter card. That comes down early and grows and makes you want to play to the board. Oran Reef Ooze is a card that was just printed in Zendikar.
Yep.
That, comes into play, puts a counter on, snowballs.
Yep.
Let's see.
Dan gave us Pelt Collector, which I agree with.
Yeah, Pelt Collector, Endless One.
Yeah,
Yep.
literally any X for XX or XX for
Yeah.
X.
Ajani the Great-Hearted, if they want a Planeswalker, puts counters on everything, gains life, so you can, gain some life too.
Yeah, I think someone mentioned that one earlier. But yep, that's a good one.
Let's see. There's so much, like, let's see, 2 mana. Machias is a little complicated.
Tall Phil, no, I don't think that's in there. I am blanking on the name as well because apparently I just can't do names tonight, but I'm pretty sure that's a 3-drop and I don't see it in here.
Oh, Tall
The,
Phil? Do you
the
mean
landfall proliferate.
the vine something?
No, Evolution Sage is, yep.
Oh, Evolution Sage. Yeah.
Yep.
You could do Blue Hulk and Evolution Sage if you want to do Proliferate.
Yep.
There's also like what's the 2-drop from Ravnica that whenever a land comes into play, you put a counter on it?
Oh gosh.
It's a 2-mana 1/1 that every time you play a land, Vine Lasher Kudzu.
Vine Lasher Kudzu, yeah.
Vine Lasher Kudzu. Stuff like that. Like,
yep.
These are cards that are, they're intuitive, they're clean, they do the thing.
Yep.
They're not like bad outside of the synergy if the deck doesn't come together.
Yep.
Yeah.
And again, depth of application, but reasonably straightforward. Landfall, put a counter on it. Like that's pretty lightning bolty to me.
Yeah, I think so.
And well, I mean, because it's also just a 2-mana 1/1 that's going to keep growing if they don't deal with it.
Yeah, so it's kind of like a Tarmogoyf in that sense too.
Yep.
Yeah, like it can become a powerful threat.
Cool. Do you want to grab a draft on this real quick before we get too late on time?
Let's do it. Sorry,
so
and
then
we've been talking about this for a while.
Yeah, no. That's, I mean, I knew we would. Where am I at? Start draft.
All right, I have your. So I have the stream pulled up on Twitch, but there's a delay on it. So.
Yeah, what I've found when I try to share it through Discord directly is that it usually drops too many pixels and you can't see it. We can try that if you want. It might be okay, but with various people, they've all said that they don't. They have trouble seeing all the cards. It's been my experience.
So it would be in our Discord chat? Is that where it would be ideally?
Yeah, I mean, I can try to do basically stream it to you there, but like I said, it tends to. I'll share it over to you real quick. You can let me know.
Try it because the delay is pretty
substantial. Okay.
This is great. I can see.
Is that coming through? Okay, great.
Yeah, it's coming through.
Maybe it's people's monitors. Cool. All right. So again, we'll teamwork this, but I typically give the guest host final say. So if you insist on a card, I won't click on it something else to be a jerk. I did that to Dakaru a little bit, but that's a different thing.
Right over the Overgrown Tomb, so you know.
I know what you want. Yeah, the land.
Okay, so
I also think in this cube that's just a solid pick. I mean, like as far as the colors and everything. But yeah, dual land's a good place to start.
Cold Steel Heart is also fine, but I'd rather just take a land.
Yep. For the sake of argument, aside land, just because I mean, there's a point where, every time a P1 comes up on like when I post those on Twitter, I'm like, okay, yes, lands. What else? Because, then there's no real discussion, right? We know that picking lands early is good.
Dude, I know. I'm at this point where I might build a cube in my Cube Cobra that is my cube, but without any lands in it.
Right. Just to pull those P1
I'm so sick of refreshing my playtesting to try to find
especially yours. Especially yours.
Like maybe
good
I could
luck.
Just, make a dummy cube that has no lands in it.
Yeah. Yeah. Yep.
Wait a minute. I know somebody that's done that. I think Funch does that too. Sir Funch a lot. That's in the chat. I think he actually does that.
Just makes a version of it with no land so that you can
I think so.
pull a pack one.
Yeah, he'll probably tell me in the chat
Sure,
too.
sure. Um, yeah, I think Dan's got a good point that Cold Steel is still pretty good, ramping from 2 to 4. Similarly, if you think you're going to go big, snapping up the Palladium Mirror early could be maybe a bit more narrow than Cold Steel, but um, is a good way to get your ramp on
Well,
early.
yeah, I think 2 to 4 is obviously can be very powerful,
Yeah.
and I think I wouldn't, chastise somebody for taking a mana rock,
Yep.
pack one, pick one.
Yep.
Um, but I don't know. I can't resist just making myself more open with
Yep. No,
fixing.
we'll grab a land. I agree with that.
It feels so powerful to me.
Right. No, it is. No, for sure. I mean, okay.
And then,
And then
which thriving one is this? This is the white
this is
one?
the white one. Yep. Yep.
Okay.
And then we have an is it check
Yeah.
land. The is it check land.
So it's like an
It's,
is it pack, basically.
it really is. Yeah. And then path. Um, I mean, if you want to stay in green, Steve isn't the worst card to get into early.
True. Steve is okay. It gets better because there's more expensive creatures in the cube.
Right.
The most powerful card in the pack is probably Path to Exile.
100%.
Uh, the Thriving Land. I mean, I haven't played them, but they're just like flexible guild gates. Um, I think I like Path over a land because of how efficient the rate is on it. Oh boy. Sorry, that's just not my window.
Yeah.
Uh,
New York, baby.
I think I like Path over a land, and I don't know what other card I would take based on based on having an overgrown tomb. So
Yeah. Yeah. No, I'm with you. Grab the
yeah,
path. I'm with you on that.
it's just so efficient,
Yep.
Uh, well,
Okay. Now we have
there's
some
Garrett
choices.
Wildspeaker, which is a great card. There's a couple of lands too. Is it Llanowar Waste and whatever that card
Yeah,
is?
like we can stay in. It's the cycling blackland,
Oh,
and
okay,
there's
okay.
the temple, Blue Black Temple. Yeah, I mean I think we don't want to get too locked into our first pick, but like Garrick and Llanowar Waste are both very solid follow ups to an overgrown tomb. Um,
Yeah, and
and again, nothing else here in white, right? So like we're not necessarily juking into the
yeah,
path per se.
yeah, yeah, and that's fine. I'm
Yep.
I'm I'm okay with that.
Yep.
I don't need my path, but
Right.
I'm just happy to have the option to play it if I do see fixing.
Yep.
So
Yep.
I think I'm just gonna take the most powerful card in the pack.
Garrick.
I'm just gonna take the Planeswalker and
Garrick.
just see that as a signal that I might be seeing green in the future.
Yep.
But who
Yep. Yep.
knows? Well,
Or we could just get all the white cards.
is it an isolated chapel in a caves?
It is. Yep. Yep.
Yeah, so
Black, white, black,
that
white.
seems great to me. Journey to Nowhere also seems very good.
Yep.
But if I want to make sure I can play my path,
You need the land
if
to
I'm
play
going to
it.
be using my Overgrown Tomb, uh, I would take one of the lands.
Yeah, there's a lot of support in the chat for Abzan. And I'm sorry, did you say
Have some good stuff?
caves specifically, or would you want the chapel? Probably the caves, right?
Probably Caves.
Yeah.
It's going to enter the battlefield untapped more often.
Yep. Yep.
Uh,
Well, and if we end up more splashing one of those colors like white, then we're less worried about having the right land.
all right, so here's a good inflection point, right?
Yep.
So look at this. So we have Conclave Mentor.
Yep.
We have is that Priest of the Forgotten Gods?
It is. Yep.
Okay. And Cast Out and Blood
And Blood
Artist.
Artist. Yep.
But there's also a Deadweight. And I have to think that just like taking an efficient removal spell feels better for
Sure.
me right now than seeing where the draft goes than trying to take something to like try to shoot for the moon. I just rather
Like
just
with
take it.
Conclave, you mean?
Yeah, like I
Yeah.
would just rather take a card that I know I'm going to want to play 100% of the time,
Yep.
know what its power level is.
Yep.
Um,
The we
Cast out.
also just passed an Armorcraft judge, so we may have just signaled
Damn it! You
our
passed the judge
seatmate. We
and the
passed it.
mentor?
I was gonna
No!
ask if you wanted to just take that and get into it, and had I known Conclave Mentor was coming up. Yeah,
No,
no,
I'm
I
okay.
agree with you. I think
Take the
that's a
removal
good.
spell. Now I'm just going to take Ravenous Chupacabra, I think.
I don't see anything that. I mean, yeah, we're not probably getting into red at this point because Judith and FTK are great cards, but
Yeah.
for me it would be between the Chupacabra and the Hydra, and I think that the Chupacabra is better.
Yeah.
No, I don't know if I agree with that. The Hydra is more versatile, and I'm a sucker for it.
I think they're both fine. I think that if this cube is slower, Hydra's probably better. And maybe if we do wheel some of the counter stuff, Hydra gets better.
Right. There's
Maybe
there's a
that's
lot
it.
of there's a lot of support in the chat for Hydra.
All right, then let's take Hydra.
Yeah.
Let's let
It is
chat.
it is just a good card. It is just a good card.
It is just a good card.
Yep.
I'll take the 2-drop here.
Mm-hmm.
It's also sometimes a 5-drop.
Mm-hmm.
It has counters.
Yep.
What are the green cards?
You know you love Cage
Cage Breakers
Breakers.
and Roar the
Roar.
Worm.
And
I think I'm just
Brontodon.
in for Pacifism.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's a 2-mana removal spell. Helps me attack through with my ground beefy dudes.
Yeah.
Oh boy, these guys are getting rowdy. I'm gonna close
Yeah,
the
they are.
There we go. Yeah.
Sarah
So...
Angel, not even close.
Of
Oh, Grim Tutor's in here.
course. Of course.
Yeah.
Man. What is that Glimmer Point Stag? That's a blinking Vigilance 3/3?
Yeah. For 4.
I don't really have anything to... Is it permanent? Yeah. Nothing yet for that.
No.
Skeleton is okay. I mean, Angel's just like a big body.
It might actually, jokes aside, it might actually be drown. All creatures -2/-2 on every turn. I mean, I might be worried about killing our whole board.
Possibly.
We don't know yet. We only have a couple creatures and a Garrick, which makes 3/3s.
I'd be down for either Drown in Sorrow or Sarah.
Yeah.
I'm not like too afraid of like going against a low to the ground deck because
Yeah.
I have 3 cheap removal spells already.
Right.
Plus several token makers and green's naturally. Green mid range is pretty favored against aggro already.
I'll also say I think our opportunity to get better versions of Sarah Angel is going to be high, where we're not going to see a lot of Drown in Sorrow effects. That I don't know if we want one, but
That's true. Also, I think I'm gonna take the stag as
Sure.
a speculative pick.
Sure.
In case we see stuff on the wheel.
Some blinky stuff.
Holy shit!
Or if we just
Is
get
red
back
open?
all of our Is It cards.
I
Well,
might just like
this
take
pack was lousy with red
Electrolyze
blue.
and just let the whole table know that they're idiots for not taking Electrolyze.
Yep.
No, wait.
It doesn't matter.
I'm gonna take Good Fortune Unicorn here over the Dust Legion Zealot. Maybe that's wrong,
Sure.
but
Well, I mean, that might get us into that counters deck.
yeah.
Maybe.
I'm gonna take Gideon's Lawkeeper, and it's not even close. It's a 1-mana removal spell to me.
Yeah, 100%.
Now I'm gonna take
okay.
Tusker.
The Mentor came around, notably.
Yeah, but
I wouldn't take it. I'm just noting that Armorcraft Judge did
nobody
not.
wants it.
So
None
I'm
of the
actually
bots
not.
want it.
I'm not sure what's happening because Armorcraft Judge did not. So
Take Seeker of the Way because we have removal.
Yep. Yep.
And
then
throw
that's
flyers on our sideboard.
sideboard.
All right, so we're pretty solidly green and white.
Yep. We're
Um,
pretty solidly Abzan.
what's the Thriving Land? What color is it?
It is the black one.
All
Black
right,
one.
I'm pretty apt. I'm pretty apt to take that. I'm not
Yeah.
missing out on any of the creatures here.
No.
Like
Or
Rager's fine.
Sheltering
It's
Light or
medium. Buglers, whatever. The 4/4s, whatever.
yeah.
I'm not really interested in making tokens so much as I am making sure I can cast my spells.
Always.
So I'm good on Thriving More.
Rager might be good. We're not in black. I'm not sure.
I'm taking Llanowar Elves or Elvish
I guess that's
Mystic or
fair,
whatever that
actually.
is up there.
Yeah,
Yeah,
it's the Mystic.
for sure. It's like, you know,
Right.
certainly one of the most powerful cards in this pack.
Yep.
Probably the most powerful cards in the cube. You're right, I'm not in black, but I have black removal and I might want to be able to splash for it. Uh, I could
Might
take
want a
Ignite
Woodland
of
Cemetery.
Autumn, but I could also take Woodland Cemetery here. Can you scroll down to the deck?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. I'm probably just gonna take hold on, go back up now.
Yep.
Is it Woodland Cemetery or Cast Down? Hmm. Night of Autumn is good, but I feel like I probably just want the fixing. Or oh wait, is that a Planeswalker?
The Johnny puts counters. A Johnny and Lily are
Oh,
both planeswalkers
yeah,
here.
no. Let's just take a Johnny.
Yeah.
I
Okay. I was
didn't
like,
notice that.
there was a lot of support in that for that in the chat, and I was like, maybe
Oh
you
my
didn't see
God.
it.
Yeah, sorry, I didn't even notice that that was there.
Is there any way you pass Horizon Canopy here?
No,
No.
no, you just take
And that being said, like I ain't mad at a Thragtusk, or a
yeah,
Llanowar Visionary, honestly. But yeah, Canopy
but
is
a Horizon Canopy, man. Come
unbeatable.
on.
Yep. The original. The
The
original.
OG.
Yep. Interesting. All right.
What's
So
the green cards up top?
Winding Way
No.
and Wild Growth.
Wild Growth. I'm interested in Wild
And then we
Growth.
have a Reaper in black.
Reaper's o-
And
Reaper's
I think
okay.
we're not in black to the point of Massacre Worm, right? I think that's quite clear.
No.
But
Let's
a
just
Reaper might be an okay splash.
yeah, let's just take the ramp spell.
Yeah, Wild Growth.
Yeah.
Yep. Yep, yep.
I like
Visionary.
Sunlance. 1 mana removal spell.
Okay. Fair enough. Keep it low to the ground.
Sorin
Oof.
is a decent reason to be black, but the issue is there's also a Elspeth
There's
in the pack.
Elspeth. Yep.
Can we scroll down and see our curve for a sec?
Yeah, man.
So, yeah, I just kind of want to take the Planeswalker.
I mean, I think generally that's
Yeah.
a good move. Yep. Yep, yep.
Is that Promise of Boon Ray? Dauntless Bodyguard seems decent as like a cheap creature. What else is in the
I mean,
pack?
are we aggressive enough?
Not
Do you want
really.
do you
We're
want that
really
over
gonna get
another 1 mana kill a 2?
scroll down to the deck.
Yeah.
I kind of like taking the Dauntless Bodyguard. I like that it protects my threats.
That's fair. Yep. Cool.
I'm good to take that.
Sure.
Now on the wheel, I'll just take the 4-drop.
Yeah, as I say, I think War Leader's fine in this deck.
Yeah, it's fine.
Like,
I mean, obviously it's a decent curve with Tusker.
I was gonna say, curving that into Tusker is pretty exciting
Yeah.
possibility. Um,
Is this all Abzan cards in the pack?
it sure is.
So we have Master
Choose your
Admirer,
flavor.
don't need Doom Traveler, don't need Chittering Rats, don't need Sovereign. I mean, maybe I just take Mask Admirer. I mean, I'm not really like excited to play any of these cards. Vampire Sovereign would be fine. Uh,
Honestly, I think I'd be on Doom Traveler. I mean, I know we don't need it, but if we're gonna play 1 mana roadblocks.
Yeah, but at the
I
same
feel
time,
like
like,
I feel like we're a super Jundi Abzan deck, you know?
oh, absolutely,
Yeah.
for sure. But Doom Traveler isn't really getting it going for me. What does our
Right.
fixing
That's
look
fair.
like right now? I have
We
three
have
sources of black. That's nowhere near enough to play a double black card.
no. Yeah,
Uh,
I kind of skipped over Rats and Sovereign because
yeah.
I don't know that we're there.
I mean, I could take Admirers. I'm just probably not going to play it.
Sure.
Um, or I could take Doom Traveler in case I play against Mono Rat or something. All right, Knight of
Already
Autumn.
clicked it. Knight of Autumn.
Land, Knight of Autumn.
Yeah, I think that's great on the wheel.
It's pretty clear that. Okay, so
Herd?
as
It's a
good
three
as
drop?
Cloud Goat can be at 5, Herd is just a good card.
Yeah.
It's
Well, and
chonky.
we're light on 3 creatures, so just get that chunky 3/3.
It's just chonky, yeah.
Yep. Yep.
Take Domri in
The
case for
only
whatever reason I can play it.
yeah, everything's red here.
Yeah.
You want another 2/1?
Tended Knight, maybe?
Yeah, we're still light on 3s
Yeah,
theoretically, like
Tended Knight.
unless you're going to play Electrolyze.
Ooh, Time Wipe.
Time wipe
Perfect.
on the wheel.
Perfect.
So I think
Hmm.
again, as I mentioned earlier, as we get around the halfway mark on this pack, once we're back to the wheel, I think most of the picks don't matter as much. So I'm going to click through them a little faster,
Sure.
but
Yeah, sure,
we
sure.
should definitely dissect the first couple picks because there'll be some good.
I'm pretty happy to take Saproling Migration.
Okay.
Uh, it's basically a 2 mana 2/2 or a
Yeah.
6 mana. What is it? 6 mana 4/4 or whatever.
Yeah.
Fertile
4. Yep.
Ground also could be okay. We do have a number of 4s, so it could be a good curve. We already have 13 creatures. I'm kind of in for Fertile Ground. We have a lot of 4-drop Planeswalkers, so it's kind of like playing a Signet or whatever.
Yeah. Yeah. Yep.
So
Yeah. I
I'm
like
okay
that.
with that.
I like that because we have a little bit of 1 mana acceleration, but having that option at 2, it's
Yeah,
it's the
you
mana
don't need
rock that
too
we
many.
skipped out on.
Yeah, you don't need to go too hard into the acceleration.
Right.
You just need to like get one step ahead in
Yep.
these mid-range decks.
Yep. Agreed.
Um,
That's interesting. Ewit?
Ebit's a good value card. Works with the stag and like it's just like a good card. Like the flyer is also a consideration too.
Sure. Yeah.
The more removal that we have, the better Ewit gets.
Right.
We do have a fair amount of it, although one of it's pacifism. Um,
Yep.
can you scroll down the deck real quick?
Sure, man.
Just want to see it. And then go back up. Ewit or aerial responder. I guess between the two, I guess I like Ewit better. A little bit better. I don't know.
I think Ewit, we also know that our opponent is likely to have good removal. I mean, I know we got a good amount, but there's removal going around in spades, right?
Yeah.
I think it
It's
also
just
just
a body.
plays more to our
Body is just
our
so
value
small, though.
game. Yeah.
Like playing Call the Herd and Ewit in the same deck just feels kind of weird to me. Because like one of them is just so aggressive, like so big and
Sure.
aggressive, and the other one
Sure. Yep. I get you.
light. I love Precinct Captain, but Nissa seems like pretty busted here.
Over the Green Grove.
No, I like Nissa Voices Zendikar here.
Sure.
I think this card is pretty nuts.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, it is. It is for sure.
Like that to me is an outlier, like against
Right.
the other cards.
Yes, I agree with that.
Oh.
Yeah,
Blossoming Defense and throw it in the sideboard? I don't know.
probably.
Yeah.
There'll be a matchup where we don't mind having that, and I don't think we're on like Freebooter,
Yeah. No.
which
We're
I
not on
love.
Freebooter.
No, I think it's a good card, but yeah.
For sure. I enjoy Freebooter, especially in spell heavy decks. Is that a Adonto Vanguard?
It is. Yep,
I like Adonto Vanguard.
it's a good card.
Yeah, I like Adanto. Maybe we'll wheel Battle Screech or the equipment.
Those would be fine. Coming around.
Bloodchief's Thirst is a consideration too, but
Sure.
this deck is starting to shape up like it wants to be really aggressive.
Yeah. Yeah, we've
Uh,
leaned into that a bit more.
is that a pristine talisman?
It is.
Nah, I don't really need that.
No. We want our colors for the most part.
I'm happy with Last Gasp. I'm
Right.
happy with Bailoff Knoll as a sideboard card. Raise the Alarm doesn't is okay also.
Yeah.
Maybe it's just Raise the Alarm because it's cheaper
You want to go wider.
and it goes well with my Nissa and with the Johnny. Yeah,
And with the
okay. I like
unicorn.
Raise the Alarm.
Goes well with the unicorn.
Yeah, it goes well with the Unicorn.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yep.
Probably
I
going
like
wider is better over
cheaper is
aggressive.
good.
Yeah. Yeah.
I see what you mean about the blurriness.
Yeah, I mean, it seems to come and go, but
So it looks like spider spawning. And then what's the third card?
heirloom blade.
Ooh,
Yeah.
heirloom blade.
Could be spicy.
I do like an heirloom blade.
There is a
I gotta
sulfuric
take it just
vortex.
because I am friends with Usman Jamil, the
Yeah.
big supporter of heirloom blade and
Yep.
Cube.
Yep.
So we gotta. I think we gotta take it just for his sake.
Gotta take it. We'll send him the VOD.
Yeah, we gotta rep the Usman heirloom blade vibe.
Did that click? There it goes.
Luminarch
Oh
Aspect's
boy.
busted. Just slam it.
Yeah, there's
Aspect's
nothing
nuts.
better than that.
This card has wildly overperformed for me.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, and this is the deck we wanted in.
Now we're taking Saproling Migration since we have
Right.
this
And it came around.
Tusker
Yep.
Unicorn.
Yep. Token counters is kind of where we're at, right?
Yep. So now this is gonna be easy. Just take the responder.
Yep. I agree.
Um, looks like they're gonna be nice and creature heavy, which is good.
Yep.
Take Precinct Captain.
Take
That's
the
crazy.
captain.
Good. Great Orc Guardian is pretty crazy too, but I
Yeah.
just want to keep it low.
Yep.
8 Draft Languish. Get out of here.
Yeah. Yeah. For real. Getting our discard board. Same with the fumigate, or do you want the spear? Actually, I guess these are all.
What? Cartouche of Strength is the +1/+1 trample and fight.
Yep. Might be fine.
Yeah,
I guess. Well.
it's okay.
Yeah.
I'm more on small creatures than I am big ones. It just makes me want the spear a little
I'd say
more.
the spear probably is better.
Spear. I'm not sure it's going to make the main deck, but it's something
Yeah, I mean,
that I could use. Uh,
Overrun.
Sure. Overruns.
Yeah, I mean, whatever. Like I said, these last few are more about the.
Yep.
If it was a real draft, we'd be excited to make those little decisions. But I think in this context,
Yeah. All right.
cool. There it is.
A really fair-ass green-white deck.
Yep.
Some tokeny stuff and some counters and,
Yep.
you know,
Yep.
it's a little beat-down deck. So,
Yep.
cool.